directly, but if you ask me where my heart, where my mind is on this issue, that is what that's what keeps me up at night. Yep, I already got you. Yes.
Thanks, Administrator. Maxine Joslow with the Washington Post. Two quick questions, if I may. One, just quick follow-up question on DOJ. Can you confirm reports that DOJ is using AI to monitor EPA employees' emails? And two, on your broader priorities at the agency, beyond this, what you've described as sewage crisis at the border and beyond rolling back what former President Biden did in terms of regulations, what would you describe as your main priorities at the agency? Thank you.
Well, there's two parts to the priorities. One is operationally, making sure that EPA is operating as efficiently as it possibly can. That's why we've been looking at grants and contracts, real estate footprint, travel, staff, and more. When we came in, we inherited an operation that, for the most part, people weren't even here in the office. COVID-era remote work is over. Now we've gone through multiple days of them returning to the office on February 24th and March 10th and April 7th. When I came in, I had asked the team, how much have employees been coming in since January of 2024? And the answer is that on Mondays and Fridays, it averaged 5 to 8%. The record high attendance was 37%. Getting people back in the office is a priority. Now, once we get people back in the office and we see how many people we have here, we're then able to make a decision on our real estate footprint. We have 5 buildings over the course of 2 square city blocks, and we made a decision a couple weeks ago to remove agency employees from 7 floors of the Reagan building, which would save about $18 million. It's another example of finding an efficiency. Now, there's a whole lot more to talk about in that bucket of operationally getting better. On the policy side, part of our priority is to fix what we inherited that we disagree with. Now, I'm not allowed to prejudge outcomes of each individual rulemaking. As you well know, there's a part of the process where the administrator does end up weighing in, but until that point comes, I don't prejudge outcomes. While that's been going on, a priority has been to travel the country. I've been to LA where the wildfires ended up destroying over 13,000 properties. Lahaina in Maui, where EPA has had an important mission. Flint, Michigan. East Palestine, Ohio. Western North Carolina. There's a lot of really good work that the EPA did that I'm very proud of in Los Angeles. The president came in. The wildfires had happened a few days earlier in Los Angeles. The president signed an executive order saying that we have 30 days to complete our hazardous material removal, phase 1, before Army Corps comes in and they do their phase 2 work. 30 days was initially declared by many as impossible to meet because of the size, the scope, the scale. We actually ended up getting it done in less than 30 days. We ramped up our effort to over 1,500 workers out in California. We're really proud of EPA's efforts out there. I had a decision to make just a couple of weeks ago with regards to just under 40 miles of the Delaware River Basin to improve water quality, to improve standards as it relates to what is released from plants there on the water. Now, I could have went one direction that would not have ramped up water quality, or it could go another direction that I would. Now, I understand that there was feedback in the past from some of these sites advocating against having those increased standards. But I feel confident that we made the right decision in increasing water quality. It's important for endangered species, fish that are in that area. It's something that we stand by. And these are just a few examples of work that we've done that maybe doesn't get as much coverage as as some of the other work that we're up to, but we're really proud of it. The EPA's core mission is protecting human health and the environment, and we will continue to pursue opportunities to be able to improve the environment. As it relates to DOJ and use of AI, I don't have anything that I'm able to tell you as it relates to, you said employee emails. I don't have anything to say to confirm or add to that. With that being said, I do believe that we should be, generally speaking, we should be utilizing AI inside this agency. But that's, when I have had conversations as it relates to AI, it hasn't been with regards to emails. It's been with regards to improving the process for receiving and responding to public comments, overseeing grants, reducing backlogs inside of a new chemicals office. So I have had conversations as it relates to AI, but my conversations related to AI have been on those other topics. Yes. Now we'll have to figure out a way to go to the back row. I'll start over here.
Hi, thanks so much, Jacob Gardenswartz with Scripps News. Can you confirm or clarify whether the greenhouse gas reporting program has been terminated or at least modified? And if that is the case, can you explain sort of how reducing requirements for reporting greenhouse gases aligns with your goal of cleaner, safer air and water for everybody?
Yeah, this is something that is going through a review, just like many other things that we inherited here. I don't have anything to announce as far as decisions that would be made at the end of the review, although I do look forward to that feedback from the team as to ways that we could possibly have any improvements with it. I've heard feedback as I've traveled of people who have been upset with how the program has been administered. But as far as there being a decision, that's not something that I've made yet.
Thank you. Callie Pattison with the Washington Examiner. Maryland's General Assembly is currently advancing a way to lock in Biden administration rules on coal ash disposal sites. If they are successful, does the EPA plan on taking any action? And as an aside to that, is it the administration's position that states can impose stricter regulations as the EPA is rolling back many of the Biden ones?
Well, we certainly want to advance cooperative federalism here, and we want to work with states. And that applies to this and many other topics as well. Not every state is going to agree with each other as far as the best path forward. We want to work with states on their plan. One of the announcements that we made on March 12th was with regards to coal ash. There's been a lot of innovation in how these different industries have pursued their way of production. It's something that is under a review. There hasn't been any decision yet. I'm not allowed to say where I would want it to go. I haven't decided where it's going to go because we're not yet at that stage of the rulemaking. But that was part of the March 12th announcement that we will go through the Administrative Procedures Act review. And when it is appropriate, when I'm allowed to comment in detail as to where I think the final solution should be, I'll certainly weigh in right away. In the meantime, though, any states that are out there who want to work with EPA to have that authority at the state level, we would encourage them to reach out to us because we certainly want to advance cooperative federalism on this and many other issues. And by the way, if I call on you and by accident you've already asked a question, just as a courtesy to your colleagues, just
Sure.
just
Jean
remind me.
Chemnick, thanks, at E&E News. I wonder if you could tell us about the process that will lead to the greenhouse gas endangerment finding reconsideration. Is it a full rulemaking? Will there be a proposal and public comment and a final rule? How quickly will it move? What stage is it at now?
Yeah, there will be a rulemaking process. That's what I anticipate at this point with public comment and with regards to all of our rulemaking. And I said it yesterday when I was doing the Face the Nation interview. And when we go through a public comment period, we encourage people who are concerned about these issues and have opinions one way or the other and have technical experience. They want to provide their insight. I would encourage them to participate and to provide their public comment. There isn't a set timeline here as we go through the process with regards to the dozens of different actions that we are going to start rulemaking on. They each will follow the Administrative Procedures Act, and we'll make sure that the actions that we take on everything are as durable as possible. Did I call on you yet? Okay, perfect.
Hi, Megan Quinn from Waste Dive. I have a PFAS question for you. What's the latest on the CERCLA hazardous substance designation? I know that that's been going through a court process, especially with waste and landfills who are concerned about being passive receivers of that material and hoping to have them and some other industries not be part of that designation.
Yeah, great question. So my goal over the course of the next few weeks is to finalize as much of a first plan as possible. There might be some items related to PFAS that weeks or months down the road, there will be another element where, of a decision gets added on. But my goal is right now to be able to decide on as much of the plan as we can, as opposed to, piecemeal, scattershot, one decision at a time. There's work here from the Office of Water, from the Office of Chemicals, from Office of Land and Emergency Management, from OECA, from Enforcement and Compliance. And I don't want to have one meeting at a time for one decision at a time. I've lost count of how many meetings I've had internally as it relates to PFAS. This is something that's been important to me for a long time. I was a member of the PFAS task force when I was a member of Congress. I represented the district with a number of PFAS contamination sites. I've heard from members of Congress mostly about the passive receiver issue, where they have local water municipalities that are concerned about having to foot the bill and then passing it on to their consumers, which goes against the principle of polluter pays. I disagree with the concept that a consumer, that an American has to pay to clean up PFAS from their own waterway. Now, as responsible parties are, in some cases, as you would well know, I'm sure you all would well know, includes the federal government. I believe in the principle of polluter pays, and we shouldn't be making consumers pay for it. I've also heard a lot of feedback. So there's two things that I've heard mostly from members of Congress. That's one. The second is that there are dates that are coming up where these local water systems are going to have to come into compliance with dealing with PFAS levels in their own water, where they are expressing their concern that they will not be able to meet that date. And we're going to review these pleas one at a time and review them on the merits. And we'll go through a process here internally that would be hopefully part of this decision to come out over the next few weeks on what we are looking to do, what we could do, what we will do on those pleas that we're getting from these local water systems. So those are the two main things we're hearing from members of Congress, and on both of those topics, I've heard from members of Congress on both sides of the aisle on it. There's a lot of different aspects of what will be part of that decision to come in these weeks that are coming up. I can't guarantee that every single last piece of what's in front of us related to PFAS is going to be part of that announcement, but it's, I think, preferred for all as opposed to just making one announcement a day. Yes.
Hi, Valerie Volkovici with Reuters. Can you tell us what are some of the research priorities for the Office of Research and Development? Will there be a move to consolidate some of that work? And how are you as an administrator going to ensure that the work that the researchers are doing reflect the priorities of the administration?
Sure. First is we're going to fulfill all of our statutory obligations. No matter what we do, whatever we decide to do, we must fulfill all of our statutory obligations. We were talking earlier about a backlog in new chemicals. When I met with the chemicals office said that it would help them if they had 100 scientists currently at the Office of Research and Development to come to the chemicals office and help them reduce the backlog. And that's just one backlog in one particular office where they want to tap into that expertise of these scientists inside the agency. There has not been a final decision yet on the next steps of reorganization. I will say that the conversations that we are going through involve every single office. And we're just trying to get it right. We're speaking to political and career staff in all of these different offices to solicit their insight on ways that they think this agency can operate better. Number one is I think it's incredibly important for us to fulfill all statutory obligations. Two, I do not want to lose one good employee. And we're going to be very thoughtful and deliberate in how we go forward in this process. I would also say any agency, in this case, I'll speak for the EPA only. I can only speak for EPA. My goal is that we would not have, if you ask me what's the perfect number for the agency, while we're figuring out that exact number, the answer should be not one more or one less than what we need to fulfill our statutory obligations, to fulfill our core mission, to be able to power the great American comeback, which is, to that other part of your question, fulfilling the president's priorities. Because, the president often speaks to me about wanting to unleash energy dominance, permitting reform, and advancing cooperative federalism. That conversation comes up often. As a lot of governors going to the White House to meet with him. It's important to the president to make America the AI capital of the world. And as he's been talking about since his campaign and before, bringing back American auto jobs. So that's part of our priorities on top of what is that core mission and that first pillar, not just protecting human health and the environment, but as defined, empowering the great American comeback, clean air, land, and water for all Americans. Yes. Go ahead.
Related question on Eric Stockstead, Science Magazine. A related question on scientific capacity. Will EPA continue to support the Science to Achieve results, external grants program, and other support for university scientists related to the agency mission?
Yeah, so the first thing as it relates to every dollar that the EPA spends, if it is fulfilling a statutory obligation, it's going to get done. If Congress appropriates a dollar to EPA and says that EPA needs to send that dollar to a university scientist, that is our statutory obligation to get that money to where Congress appropriated it to. Now it's our responsibility to make sure that we are being responsible stewards of that tax dollar, to maintain oversight, to make sure that money is not getting wasted. So that's going to be an important priority. As it relates to any grant inside of the agency that is not fulfilling a statutory obligation, that is not part of our powering the great American comeback, if there's an extra dollar, no matter where it's going, that is a dollar that we would be looking at as to whether or not it should continue, because we're trying to make the agency work as efficiently as it possibly can. But nothing is going to get sacrificed that is a core statutory obligation. At the same time, again, making sure that we have a zero tolerance policy being implemented here for any waste or abuse. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Stephen Nelson from the New York Post. Two quick questions for you. Governor Hochul recently met with President Trump at the White House and apparently expressed her opposition to a pending gas pipeline project that would go through New York. Is that project capable of being completed over her opposition? And if so, could you describe your role in that? And also, you've mentioned that Stacey Abrams Link Group's $2 billion grant is under investigation by DOJ and the FBI. What's EPA's role in that review?
So with regards to Constitution Pipeline and Nessie Pipeline, two pipelines that were pulled back about 7 years or so ago, that were delivering energy to and through the state of New York. At that time, Governor Andrew Cuomo was threatening to use the state's power under 401 of the Clean Water Act. And the company that had the application chose to pull the application back at that time when under that threat from the governor to stop it. President Trump has spoken publicly about his desire to continue with that project. It would certainly help not just New York, but the Northeast, New England, has been trying to get more natural gas into their states. And in order to get natural gas through New York and to these states, the pipelines have to go through New York. This is something that I've spoken to the governor about as well. I feel strongly about it, just like we've heard from the president and many others about the advantages of moving forward with these projects. I remember serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and President Biden was just elected. John Kerry was just put in a position as climate czar at the White House, and he came to testify in front of the committee. And one of my colleagues, I don't remember which one, asked him what the safest, cleanest way, I'm paraphrasing, what was the safest, cleanest way to transport energy? And it was a multiple choice question. He was asking pipeline, truck, train. Again, you would have to go back and look at the exact way the question was worded, but that's basically what he was asking Kerry. And without missing a beat, Kerry said pipeline. I mean, confidently and proudly. If we're all in agreement that this is such a good way to transport energy, and in some cases a critical way to transport energy, why is this even up for dispute? Why is this even controversial? You know, in New York, they have banned the extraction of natural gas. They are not approving pipelines as, for example, the one that we're discussing here. They don't allow gas hookups to new construction. They're moving towards a ban on the sale of gas-powered vehicles. And then New York goes back and forth with California as to which state leads the whole country in out-migration. You want to know why? It's not a big mystery. Because New Yorkers are saying that, and California residents are saying that they feel like their money will go further if they go to another state. And energy policy is something that presents a great opportunity for these governors and these legislators to be able to tap into these resources in a way that we do it better here in America than most other countries elsewhere. And the way we've tapped into innovation, the way emissions have gone down, this is something that's important for our national security, our economy, and our environment. You care about the environment? Well, we're tapping into these supplies, and America is safer than so many other countries around the world. I think that it's a missed opportunity. However, it's not too late. So I would encourage the state to be. It's not too late. The state could be part of the solution here. We want to work with the state of New York and these other states that are desperate for this capacity in order to be able to get it done. Now, you asked about the $2 billion. This is part of a $20 billion fund that was put at an outside bank towards the latter half of 2024. This is $20 billion that went through 8 entities. One of the entities is called Power Forward Communities. They received a $2 billion grant. This is the NGO that was linked to Stacey Abrams. The Department of Justice FBI investigation, as far as I know, is with regards to the entire program, including this NGO and the other NGOs. We will continue to cooperate with that investigation. There's an investigation with the Office of Inspector General here at EPA. There are investigations inside of Congress. There are questions that get asked to me of members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. They want to know what's going on, and they have specific questions, and I'm happy to answer it for them. We will work with everyone. I mean, if any of you have any questions that you want to ask about this $20 billion that's outside, or any other source of funding here inside of the EPA, that's why we'll get together like this, because there's a lot of important questions. You could tell your passion as reporters, asking me about new chemicals review and PFAS and what else can we do to protect the environment. These are really important questions. I didn't want to, I told my team this towards the end of last week, I didn't want to get on a plane today without having the opportunity to be with you all and answer whatever questions you have. And I know that when my team put this media availability on the calendar, I think they said that it was going to last, it'll probably last under 30 minutes, and I just kind of chuckled to myself because I know that when I got here, I'm going to want to answer every question you have. Yes, sir.
Regarding the possibility of reorganization you alluded to, your plan, EPA's plans were due to OMB and OPM last week. Sean Riley, E&E News. The plans were due to OMB and OPM last Monday, including competitive areas for large-scale reductions in force. When do you anticipate making a decision? On a related topic, do you think the government should reconsider the tax-exempt status of climate groups?
I'm going to make a decision when I'm done going through a thoughtful process to make sure that I get the decision right. And there's a lot that goes into this reorg conversation, and I'm continuing to receive feedback internally inside of the agency of ways that people who have been in this agency, some years, some decades, when I'm finished processing all of the different ideas that they have so that we can get this right, that's when a decision is going to get made. And I'm hoping that it can get done really quickly. But what I'm not going to do is rush out something today, Monday, that I can get better if it was announced tomorrow on Tuesday. And I'm not telling you that's coming out tomorrow either. But I'm going to announce it as soon as I possibly can, but I want to make sure that it's as thoughtful as possible, it's as deliberate as possible, and it's as comprehensive, because this conversation is not about one office. This isn't just about the Office of Research and Development. This is about every single office and hearing everyone's idea on how we can make the agency operate better. Was there a second part?
Do you believe the government should reconsider the tax-exempt status of climate advocacy organizations?
No. I mean, no. There's organizations that are out there that follow the. If you follow the rules, then that's your regardless of your entity. You could be a C3, C4, C6. The lesson to those particular groups is to follow those particular rules for that status and that level of incorporation. Where an individual group can go awry is if they register with a particular status and they do not follow the rules for having that particular status, or they just don't follow the rules in general. And I'm not, at the same time, while I tell you my answer, I'm not saying that across the board that if you get some status as a climate advocacy group that you're immune from scrutiny and that you're entitled to do whatever you want, say whatever you want outside the bounds of the law, outside the bounds of what dictates that particular status. So it's a lesson for any group that's out there, regardless of whether you're a climate-related group or not. It's important to follow those particular rules for your status as well as the law generally. Go ahead.
Hi, Carlos Anchondo with E&E News. I wanted to follow up on comments you made earlier this year about fast-tracking states' applications for Class 6 primacy and to see what your thinking is on how you all would accomplish that. And then I also wanted to ask, in September, EPA issued a proposed enforcement order after a leak at a Class 6 well in Illinois. And I was wondering if you all have any status update on where that stands. Thank you.
I'd have to check on the answer to the second part of your question, and we can get back to you. I don't have that answer for you. As far as Class 6 go generally, I signed up one so far, West Virginia. There are a bunch of other applications that are working through the process. And our message to states has been that we're open for business. If you want to submit an application, please go ahead and do so. It's the same thing with state implementation plans. I've signed on, we've signed off on a lot of state implementation plans. We work closely with that particular state to try to get it right. The same thing goes here for these Class 6 applications. We will follow the same process that we've been following. We would like to resolve these processes as quickly as we possibly can. We don't want to be responsible for delay on our end, but we want to work with these states who are coming to us and asking for primacy.
Administrator Lee Snyder with Politico. Another PFAS question for you. A week or so ago on Long Island, you indicated that you were interested in continuing PFAS research, that you saw that was important. You also, as you indicated today, are looking at least some elements of the hazardous substance designation and the drinking water standard. Do you believe that there are scientific questions around those? And then another question around the Office of Research and Development. As I'm sure you know, great deal of PFAS research happening there, including looking at like specific mixtures of PFAS that communities like Wilmington, North Carolina are exposed to. Do you plan on making sure that that type of research continues?
Yeah, so it's funny that that last part of your question answered an earlier part of the question a bit. The science is not declared as settled. And there's nothing else to do as far as PFAS research. If science related to PFAS has shown us anything, it's that we need to continue to research PFAS. Right now inside of EPA, there's research going on as it relates to PFAS. There's research outside of EPA that's going on as it relates to PFAS. So the message that came to me as it relates to this particular topic when I came into this position, in meeting with career staffers who have been working on this PFAS issue for a long time, the briefing isn't, hey, we have it all figured out on PFAS. Our work is done here. We can now move to just regulating this because we figured out all the answers to our questions. We figured out many of the questions related to PFAS, but the research is important to continue. There's been a way that regulation has been approached with assumptions related to science, that as time goes on and science continues, it would be better to be able to pursue any of those regulations based off of less assumptions and more facts. And one of the best way to make those decisions based on more facts, less assumptions, will be more research, which will be important.
Matthew Daly from the Associated Press. The other day, the president did exemptions for dozens of coal-fired power plants, and there's been a lot of criticism about just sort of these blanket exemptions and whether or not they're just going to allow pollution to just run rampant. And also similarly to the March 12 deregulation kind of extravaganza there about, basically just saying these are the rules that we just don't like anymore. Just wonder what your response is to both of those, whether that they're kind of letting polluters run free and that we don't like these rules anymore.
Well, first off, as it relates to coal, there has been a lot of innovation just like other industries. And whether it's conversion to syngas, it's pulling critical materials out of waste. Even if you had a conversation with the coal industry, just like you're talking natural gas, you're talking wind, solar, nuclear, hydropower, as you talk to people who are involved in each of the water, if you talk to each of the people involved in these industries and you ask them, okay, what's changed in the last 40 years? There has been innovation as it relates to coal as well. On top of it, there are a number of states across this country. It's one thing like, listen, I'm from New York. Okay, we're having this conversation inside of Washington, D.C. If we were headquartered in West Virginia and y'all were West Virginia reporters, it would just be a very different focus and perspective that we all would have in having this particular conversation. There are a number of states that rely on coal-powered plants to be able to power their community. It's jobs, it's energy, and it's needed. And what has happened with regards to this ping pong, from the Obama administration to the first Trump administration to the Biden administration, and then now, is from Clean Power Plan 1 to ACE to Clean Power Plan 2.0 to now, and with other regulations related to it, for one, in the absence of congressional action and statute, it's left for a regulatory agency to have this ping pong. And the ping pong will continue on a number of different topics where there are gaps that continue in statute. So while I'm not here to lobby Congress, I would say that Congress should be finding ways to whether we're talking 2025, 2030, 2040, whatever, at any given time on any of these issues, they should see what they can get into statute rather than leaving it up to an agency for regulation. Now, the world is a bit different post-Loper Bright with the Chevron doctrine being overturned. An agency has less ability to be able to fill that gap in statute with their own law through regulation. As it relates to Clean Power Plan 1.0 and Clean Power Plan 2.0, there was this push to regulate coal out of existence. That is not something that the Trump administration agrees with. So we are not looking to regulate coal out of existence. That is something that we are trying to fix. Now, you mentioned the March 12th announcement that we made. We're going to go through a process on everything. I am not going to prejudge outcomes with what will be a lot of rulemaking. When it is appropriate under the law for me to weigh in, that is when I can start getting into specifics as to where some of these regulations will go. Yes. How are we doing on time? Good? Really? What time is it? Oh, man, we're having fun. Good.
Hi, Rebecca Hersher from NPR.
Okay.
I have a question about the science advisory boards, and particularly if you could talk about their role in any new rulemaking around soot or ozone. And I'm wondering if you think that the science is settled on that, and if it's not, who you think should be in the room to make decisions about that.
So we're going through the process now of reconstituting SAB and KSAC. There was a reset when President Trump came in, just like there was a reset when President Biden came in. And that's something that we want to reconstitute with diverse talent from across the country. We would encourage people to respond to that notice and apply for positions, and that there is an important role that they're going to play as it relates to the process. Something that's really important to me coming into this position is to allow employees inside of the agency, or it's coming from outside of the agency, it's coming from Congress, where there's something that people want to study further. And there's a question that they have that scientific research can help answer. I think it's a disservice to science if I adopt a reactionary answer to these questions by always saying that there's, like the science is settled on that and there's nothing else to learn. I think that's a pretty naive and ignorant approach for the agency to take. The agency can't both be pro-science and for the position that the science and everything is settled and there's nothing else to research. There's nothing else to discover. There's nothing else to learn. So that's my philosophy for your question. Yes.
Hey, Nick Sobchak with Axios. Just want to ask real quick about the California Clean Air Act waivers. The Senate parliamentarian has apparently indicated that lawmakers won't be able to repeal that via the Congressional Review Act. That had been submitted to Congress as a rulemaking. What are the next steps there, and are you sort of prepared to go it alone and try to repeal that just via EPA?
This right now is a review that's in Congress's, it's on their desk. And what Congress decides is up for Congress to decide. And EPA is going to continue to work with Congress and wait for Congress as far as what they decide their next action is. But we're not looking to get ahead of it. We're just looking to see what Congress decides to do. And as you would well know that there's a short period of time for Congress to act under the Congressional Review Act. So this isn't something that has some infinite or indefinite amount of time that's ahead. We'll know the answer here relatively quickly.
Appreciate that. Nick Pope with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Just with respect to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, Does EPA have any sense if these recipient groups have been able to access any of that funding at all from the city accounts in the weeks since this legal fight began, and particularly in recent weeks? And if so, if you guys have any sense of how much money we're talking about, that would also be great.
Before the first freeze came in, there was approximately $3 billion, a little over $3 billion of the $20 billion that started to get distributed through these accounts within Citibank's possession, inside of Citibank's accounts. The freeze that's currently in place has continued since it was first put on. So this isn't something where there was a freeze, it was lifted, freeze, lifted, freeze, lifted. When that freeze came on, that freeze has been on consistently since then. There have been requests for funds that come in from these recipients to Citibank in the hopes that there would be that brief moment where they can get access to their funds, and then as soon as they have access to their funds, to clear out as much as they can, which actually only ends up adding to the argument in favor of irreparable harm if that freeze was lifted while going through the appeals process. The fact that so much money would instantly go out the door if you lifted it for a second is one of the reasons why the appeals court would be hearing it as quickly as possible. And we'll see where the process goes from there, but we're confident in the argument on the merits. And and I just want to say that some of the reporting that comes out, what raised our alarm here at EPA started before I got here. When that video came out of a Biden EPA political appointee saying that they're rushing to get billions of dollars out the door before Inauguration Day, and they were throwing gold bars off the Titanic, that caught the alarm of members of Congress, and it caught the alarm of me. And I remember, I think it was Senator Ricketts during my confirmation hearing asked me, if confirmed, would I work to get to the bottom of it and do something about it? I said earlier to an unrelated question that I have zero tolerance for any waste or abuse at all. So we come into this office fulfilling our pledge to Congress to get to the bottom of this. And as we overturn different rocks and we find more evidence of waste and abuse, there are some members of the media who have dug in further into saying that there's no evidence. Every time a new piece of evidence comes out, there's some in the media saying, even with more conviction, that there's no evidence. And I don't understand how that, I mean, I have respect for journalism, okay? It's an important service to the American people. What you do is very important to the American people because you're here to be their eyes and ears. I've read stories from outlets that say that there's nothing, and then I go back. Now, if I was in a court of law and I played the video of a Biden political appointee saying that they're throwing gold bars off the Titanic, that would be considered evidence. Evidence of what? Evidence of waste and abuse. If I said that there was self-dealing and conflicts of interest, unqualified recipients, and reduced oversight, now the judge might say, in that particular case, you might say, the people might say, the American public might say, that is an accusation. Where's your evidence? So, oh, I'm glad that you asked. And if I started providing examples of Jahi Wise as the director of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund being placed on a restriction in December of 2022 that doesn't allow him to be involved in the design of the program, yet we have emails of him in January of 2023 weighing in on the design of the program, what would you call that? When his former employer ends up getting $5 billion at the end of this. when we go through the list of all of the people who are part of these recipients who are former Biden and Obama appointees. I mean, someone made a reference earlier asking me about the $2 billion that went to the Stacey Abrams-linked NGO. When I say unqualified recipients, you say, well, that's an allegation. But do you have any evidence? Well, I would say that an NGO that receives $2 billion in 2024, that received $100 in 2023, that is evidence that they're not qualified. Now, you could disagree with whether or not you think that that's enough. But that's evidence. When I say that at page 7 of the grant agreement says that they have 90 days to complete training called How to Develop a Budget. Now, you can say, well, that's not enough for you. But it's still evidence. All sorts of NGOs receiving billions of dollars that didn't even exist until this was passed. When I say there's reduced oversight, I mean, you could go back and look at days before Inauguration Day, they were amending the account control agreement. Why? I mean, go read the amendment. Why? They were amending it to reduce EPA oversight. Now, their amended account control agreement from January 13th of 2025 is evidence of reduced oversight. When you have the IG, the former Inspector General, going before Congress talking about how there's all these concerns with the way that this was created and there's reduced oversight, or the current acting Inspector General talking about how there was reduced oversight, what is all of that to you? Now, how is it that every single time an additional rock gets overturned with another piece of evidence, that there are some people in the media who will dig down even further and saying there's no evidence? By the way, I mean, open question. I know that this was supposed to end here a couple minutes ago. I'm getting the high sign. But if anyone could defend, please, just like, how is that zero evidence? How is that no evidence? How can any paper, Politico has written it, Washington Post has written it, the New York Times has written it, others have written that there's no evidence. And now we're all together, and I'm glad that we are. And it's, it's April 21st? It's April 21st, 2025. Why should any story get written after today that says no evidence? Go ahead.
Just a question, sir. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Lisa Friedman with the New York Times. Where has a judge said that this is fraud?
I'm saying New York Times said it, Lisa. Lisa, if New York Times is going to write that there is no evidence.
Not true, sir. We've written that that judges have not found.
Okay, over the last
accurate?
few months, Lee Zeldin, Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, has made explosive, you know this because you wrote it, has made explosive accusations against the Biden administration, accusing it of insane malfeasance in its handling of $20 billion in climate grants. Now, as a legal battle ensues over those funds, many of Mr. Zeldin's claims remain unsupported and some are flat out false. Why wouldn't you write that there is any evidence?
Could you point us to where the judges have found that there's waste, fraud,
Oh,
and
see,
abuse,
it's
sir?
not that easy for you, Lisa. See, because you guys are writing stories. These are your words. These aren't the judge's words. So if you want to ask the question, I'm referring to one of your stories. And this came out before the judge's decision came out. Now, if you were to, did you read the judge's 39-page decision?
Sir, with all
Have
due
you read the
respect,
39-page decision?
We've read the decision. We are basing our reporting on judges' rulings before then and since, and I'm just asking you, sir, where has the judge found that there's waste, fraud, and abuse?
So you read the 39-page decision supporting a preliminary injunction? What? It's okay if you say no.
Yeah, no, I've read all of it.
Okay, that's okay. Nowhere in it does it acknowledge anything that I just said. It doesn't even acknowledge it. So if the New York Times wants to say that there is no evidence, and Politico wants to say it, and Washington Post wants to say it, and others want to say that there's no evidence. See, I have a job to make sure that I don't waste tax dollars. And then for people in the media to be willing to sacrifice your own integrity and the integrity of your paper to make a claim that there's no evidence supporting it, well, I could stand here before you, and I just went through a list of how many things did I just mention? 10? I don't know what the list is. And then you'll go out and write a story saying that there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. I have a duty to make sure that we don't light on fire billions of dollars of tax dollars. And I am, as administrator of EPA, not going to stand before any member of the media and get bullied into lighting billions of dollars on fire. And then you'll continue to write these stories that say that there is no evidence, even though I could stand before you right now and just go through the list. How do you square that?
May I ask, sir, do you feel confident that a court will uphold?
I'm asking you, how do you square that? You guys are writing the stories. Shouldn't you write the story about what kind of evidence has been put out? Why not write the story? Why not write the story that says, hey, here's the 25 things that Administrator Zeldin says that he calls evidence, and then you could be critical of it if you want to. But how about instead of why would you not write that story?
Could you speak though to why a judge has not supported this, has not said yes?
The district court judge didn't even have jurisdiction to hear the case. Why the judge writes a 39-page opinion and doesn't even acknowledge that this even exists? Go read page 29. Oh, this is a good one. You're a reporter for the New York Times. You're probably going to be all over this. Look at footnote 7 on page 29.
I will.
Okay, and the judge says that there was no action, no amendment that was made post-election. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to the story that says, well, what about January 13th of 2025, 1 week before inauguration? The accounts were being amended. And then talk about what the amendment was. It was an amendment to reduce EPA oversight, to make it harder to conduct oversight. The judge actually says that nothing happened after the election. So I am imagining that you are going to be filled with so much outrage when you read that footnote to the judge's opinion that says that that doesn't even exist.
You were mentioning that.
Well, I'm sorry. Which?
Sorry, Jean Shemnick at E&E News.
Okay.
You were mentioning that in January of 2023 there was an email. An email showing that. Now it was a little unclear that Jahi Weiss was weighing in on behalf of the Coalition for Green Capital. Is that what the email was? Can you make that available? I'd be interested to see. Does it explicitly have him discussing the Coalition for Green Capital?
I'll tell you, December 23rd of 2022, the conflict of interest mitigation that applies to him says Mr. Wise will not be involved in the following activities, aspects of grant competitions in which CGC is a potential applicant. Bullet 1, participating in deliberations and or decisions regarding program design elements for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund identified below prior to the issuance of a written determination of the program, and it keeps going on. The emails are with regards to him participating in and weighing in with regards to the program design elements. So that's an example. Now, as far as the emails and whatnot, that's a question. As long as the attorneys say that this stuff can be released, then I'm good with releasing anything.
There's another thing. There's actually a follow-up memo on his recusal from February 3rd that I've FOIA'd for, I've asked for. Can you make it available?
I am happy with releasing anything that the attorneys say that can get released. As you all know, that there's a lot of litigation that's going on. So I, as administrator of EPA, I'm all in favor of you being able to read whatever it is that the attorneys say can get released. Good.
Again, Tyler O'Neill with the Daily Signal.
Last actual.
Have you seen any ties in these 20 million or in other grants to John or Tony Podesta, who, of course, John Podesta handled the so-called Inflation Reduction Act?
I don't have the list in front of me of everybody who was involved as it relates to the self-dealing and conflicts of interest. I know that I have some of the stuff with me that I could reference some for you. Beth Bafford, Climate United Fund CEO, served as special assistant in OMB during the Obama administration. The Climate United Fund's chief strategy officer served as strategic advisor to the Department of Energy during the last 2 years of the Biden administration. Richard Kaufman, CGC CEO, served as senior advisor to the Obama administration, DOE, and as New York Governor, Andrew Cuomo's energy czar. PFC's CEO, Tim Mayopoulos served as CEO of Fannie Mae during the Obama administration. Jahi Wise, the policy director of grantee CGC until 2021, left CGC to work at the Biden administration's Climate Policy Office on GGRF implementation. There's a long list of all of these names of people who are very closely aligned with the Biden and Obama administration. I don't have the full list in front of me. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.